Jeffrey Jones here, CEO, RMJ Media, and today we're bringing you the Common Unity Podcast. This is Jeffrey Jones, also known as Triple J, coming to you with the Community Podcast. What we say community is only common unity. That is the tie between you and I. The tie for all, the tie that binds us, the tie that makes us, the tie that makes us whole. Thank you for being here with us for this common unity. It's a vainglorious day. I have a very special guest here with me, someone I've known for over 40 years. Also one of the best officers I've ever had the opportunity to work with in the United States military. Yes, he is here today and he's going to share some wisdom with you.
Welcome.
We're going to talk about some changes. We're going to talk about how the military has changed since the early 80s and the good, the bad, the ugly. So, one of the first things I want to talk about is the fact that we had what's called a drawdown in the 80s. And in that drawdown, we lost 1/3 of our military forces. 1/3, that's a lot of people. There's been some good from it, there's been some bad from it. But one of the things I want to say is, once again, United States military has stood tall and stays the sharpest knife on the stage. So whatever we do right.
As my brother eloquently built the stage for me, a lot of the things that we see nowadays was based on stuff that was test bedded when we first came in as young professional men of arms. Let me give you a little bit about myself. I'm Alex Branch. I come from Albany, Georgia, the good life city as they call it. As some call it, Martin Luther King called it was his biggest failure. Because of the civil rights movement in Albany that was almost non-existent because of the tactics of the local police force that was able to, during the march and demonstration, instead of putting everybody in one jail, he dispersed them out to the county jails. So that means that, okay, you couldn't get one potential lawyer to kind of monitor and see how the masses are getting treated or mistreated. In this case, they had to hop around to go to all the counties around Dougherty County and Albany to actually see what was going on. I was raised in the Washington Home Projects. I would tell you, was raised richly, but we were dirt poor. Used to run up on the dike. The dike was the land barrier that kept the river from flooding the projects. Every now and then it did, but the river would rise, but it never crest over the barrier. But that was our playground. You either running up there playing soldier or cowboys in India, or that was our dirt track that we ran, because one thing about Washington Homes was that you had some of the best athletes out of Albany, Georgia, living in those projects. From when I say athletes, you're talking about from football to basketball to baseball to track. And Albany has always been along those segregated lines. You had your black high schools, you had the predominantly white high school, and then you had what they was trying to mix based on the civil rights movement, saying that you got to integrate and being bused. And then every 4 years they would, for instance, myself, out of 3 years at one high school, my senior year, I'm forced to be bused across to another school just so that other school can now meet the government mandate for it. But once again, wouldn't have traded for nothing in the world. The friends that I met that came through the projects and was able to get out of the projects, once again, I think it's a everyday American story. When I look at friends, a lot of us that didn't pursue our career or go to secondary education, college, because of their sports, they went into the military. Albany do have a Marine base there. My father met my mother based on him being stationed at the Marine Logistics Center there in Albany. So once again, I'm from a military family, and Drill Sergeant Annette knew what she was doing because she had 5 boys and I had 4 boys and 1 girl, and she drilled us. And she knew before we left that house, before we went out into the world, we would know how to maintain a household. That's the stuff you learn that you never forget. I still make up my bed every morning. My daughter asks me why, but I can't sleep in a bed unless it's made up. Okay, and so going to basic training and going through those little tactics that the drill sergeants went through of tearing up your bunk, and I had never had that problem. You could still bounce a quarter off of my bunk. My hair was shaved, so I didn't have to worry being threatened with haircuts because of disciplinary tactics. I think I was one of the lucky ones where once I graduated from high school, I attended Morris Brown College in Atlanta, Georgia. I went there on a basketball scholarship, but I ended up playing football because some kind of way the football coach got tape from the high school coach that I played football also. But that's a country boy maturation where we, once again, all year round. And Albany, the lucky thing about Albany, the temperature is pretty much like Columbus. Wintertime is maybe, if it's cold, maybe 60 something. Every now and then you might get the temperature that might drop, but at the same time, it was warm winters. So we didn't really worry about a winter coat per se. A jean jacket of the sort would be necessary for the winter, but that kept us moving. Once I left Morris Brown and was finishing up my senior year of Morris Brown, I was trying to decide, well, what I'm gonna do next. I talked to a recruiter. I didn't have 2 years left to go into the ROTC at that point. My eligibility time was up for sports. Back in those days, you had 4 years and your scholarship was up. NCAA eligibility was it. Compared to now, they have the portal, the transfer. You have guys playing 7 years that still got another year if they transfer to somewhere else. But at that time, I had to make a decision. I wanted somebody to pay for my master's because I know if I was going anywhere, the more degrees I got, the better I'm prepared to execute whatever business field, career field that I want to go in. So when I signed my contract, the contract I had, number one, they gave me a bonus. They gave me, they wouldn't give me a direct commission, but they did give me OCS as an option. And my first duty station, which was Hawaii. And come to find out, they gave me 4 choices, and I was only supposed to get 2 out of the 4. So a week before graduation from basic training, I'm being told that I have a fraudulent contract, and I could either stay at Fort Benning and go through that process again, or go into my first duty station and put in a what is it, SF7 71?
Yes, sir.
Form 71, which is, okay, we requesting for a school. Well, I said, okay, I'm tired of Fort Benning at this point. Let me go to Hawaii, because that was a bucket list before they started bucket lists. Went to Hawaii, met great people. The rest is history. Finished the 4 years at Schofield Barracks. That's where I met, at the time, Staff Sergeant Jones. You Staff Sergeant then?
I was in.
Okay. Was my squad leader, and eventually became a platoon sergeant. Part of it was Staff Sergeant Jones and the other sergeants that were training us young folks, as well as with the older seasoned veterans, which were Vietnam area veterans at that time. A lot of them had some Vietnam history with them. We're talking about at 83 at this point, which those Vietnam veterans, definitely, I know, like you said, iron sharpened iron. Everything I would say he learned from those guys that had just come back from the worst combat America has ever faced. Going into trenches, going into holes, don't know what type of bungee stickers around the corner, booby trapped out in the world. So those guys learned that survival. And not to bore you with my life story, but up to the point where I got to Hawaii, those soldiers, those professional men in arms are the ones that I believe that taught me the survival instinct that I like to think I have in the event that I need to implement it in any type of situation. Those gentlemen, once again, when it was time to train, you go to train. When we relaxed and back in garrison, we relaxed and we were back in garrison. I will tell you that it was the people that make the difference, not necessarily the job. Regardless what the job is, the mission is always there, but it's the people that gets you through whatever adversity that you're going through in order to continue consistently. And the key is to be consistent with whatever you're doing. Don't forget what you learned 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, a month ago. You apply that in every situation. And I've kind of taken that mantra with me wherever I go in life up to the present. My biggest thing that out of all the years that I went through, and not to jump the gun, let me go back some. When I left Hawaii, that's when I was able to go ahead and institute that OCS packet. I came back, went to Charlie 509 Pathfinders down in Fort Ruck, Alabama. And Fort Ruck is famous for having the largest lake with the most poisonous snakes in it. And that's what we used to jump in, was airborne qualified. So understand, once again, that training out in Hawaii, which don't have no snakes, to Lower Alabama that got too many snakes. So that kind of, if nothing else, it tighten your focus up to make sure you pay attention to where you're sitting at, where you're walking at. Those are priceless time. And once again, seasoned veterans that continue to train you to understand the importance of, don't forget the training that's being taught to you. From Fort Rucker to OCS to back to Hawaii. Thought I would be a perfect match after being in the infantry for 4 years. Thought I'd be a perfect match to be an infantry officer. They decided to make me an air defender. If it flies, it dies. And that was good, because the only thing an air defender is a glorified infantryman with a missile on his shoulder. Okay, we still got to shoot, move, and communicate. And with my prior service, I understood. I've cleaned toilets before. I've cleaned the barracks. I've mopped floors. I've had GI parties. I've done that. So as a brand new lieutenant, I didn't have to worry about, okay, what's some of the tricks to get over, and hopefully whatever I had learned, I was able to share that with the soldiers that was under my charge at the time. I like to think I did. Out of the 24 years that I've served, proud to say no one has been hurt. No one died under my charge. I like to think for the best that they're the better. They got promoted when they would do promotion. And when there was time to discipline them, they had some Article 15s also. So it went both ways. And understand, don't forget, being a black officer in a white man's military, there was still some folks that wanted to try me. And you know, those certain acronyms that they thought was their secret code. You know, we've always been able to adapt and overcome, and they don't understand that our G2 is exactly what it is. From whether it's the butler or the maid or the wet nurse or the chauffeur that pass that information down, you understand that okay, the picture's bigger than that stupidity. The picture's bigger than that ignorance. What they don't know, they don't know. I'm here to educate, okay? Because I would, if nothing else, Ms. Annette was told us we have the right to say what's on our mind. And I'm a firm believer that if you don't open your mouth, I can't read your mind, okay? And my mindset was that if I'm not in charge of myself, somebody else gonna be in charge of me. So once again, I was planning, my whole plan to this was to use this man Army to further my goals and ready me for what I thought was a career life doing what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a commercial artist. I'm the farthest thing for it. I still like my artwork, but at the same time, I've been a professional soldier now, I would say, for 40 plus years. I know some of the things that we went through while I was at Morris Brown, and I like to think that I brought with me as a young Army officer. We used to have this mantra with the Morris Brown football team, was that we always used to say, how long? Not long. You know, and once again, regardless what the situation might be, or what it is you're trying to change, or what it is you're trying to do, there's a time phase with that. And everything that we do is subject to time. Now, what works with time or against time is the preparation phase, the execution phase, and the practical application. Okay, and then let's go back and see, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? Did we think about it? Did we put our foot in our mouths, or did we jump before we should have walked? You know, so the crawl, walk, run method has always been instilled in me to understand that change will come. The military taught us that every 3 years, every 4 years, you PCS and then go into somewhere new. So if you don't adapt to that new, because you might not like your next boss, but you still got a mission to do. And that's why I try to share with my kids in ROTC is that, JROTC, is that, okay, don't be so stuck up on who's in charge. Understand that teamwork makes a dream work. And everybody plays an important role in that teamwork, okay? Individuals won't cut it, they'll fall by the wayside. Jeff was mentioning earlier, Master Blaster here, about the drawdown, and you know, back in the 80s, who was that, Ronald Reagan, when he first came in, when we got Reaganomics and all that?
Yes.
All that was part of, somebody came up with the great idea that we could do the same thing with a smaller army. They've been reinventing this thing for the last, I wouldn't say 40, I'd say at least the last 30 years. When we first came in back 83 to 86, 87-ish, cutting back light fighter force, smaller, more elite forces that can be surgically put in an area, do what they got to do, and popped out. That sounds kind of like the Rangers, right? For those folks that know what Rangers are. And that's true, but at the same time, when you talk about a light fighter, we don't have all those wonderful gadgets that the Rangers had. Maybe the numbers for a battalion might have been a little bit bigger, but at the same time, that maybe 130-man company.
That's about right.
Was tasked to do what really, I'd say 150 to a 200-man size element to do. And at the same time, that's being sliced and diced off to augment any other type of operation that might be going on. So that light fighter's mentality has always been with me. The idea of doing more with less has always been with me. Maybe that's what Woody was trying to teach us.
Oh yeah.
It's simple at its core. At the same time, it's not so much the process you go through to get stuff done. Is keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid. I guess that was Woody phrase, huh? The object of it is don't complicate it with thinking too much about it. A detail might be exactly what it is. Clean up the barracks, okay? Or you task out to go run a mission or something. And I understand that you always, install in the soldiers that you always want to make it better than how you received it. So it'll be better when you leave. They'll remember you, if not based on what you did, how you left a particular situation from what it was when you got there. The changes have continued. It's nothing new. After World War II, they did a drawdown. Vietnam, they had to draft folks real quick because of the nature of the war. After the Vietnam, they did another drawdown. So understand the process of drawing down now, whether it's a drawdown or whether it's a RIF or whether it's, what was the other term they used to do when the folks, you have a E5 that been in for 10 years or 15 years.
Hold up. It was kind of like an early out thing.
Yeah.
Where at a certain time frame, you would have to leave the Army if you didn't progress to a certain point.
If you're not checking the block as you progress, like you said, your potential for promotion, if there's somebody that evaluates you, find that you are no longer useful for the Army, and unfortunately it was one person's decision at that point, because it depends on a good NCOER or a good OER, which is an evaluation record that one person do. Your senior rater has top block, middle block, lower block. And yeah, you never want to be in the lower block, but guess what? If he's rating everybody in that middle block, everybody's really at the bottom, because he never puts anybody at the bottom. But if everybody's in that middle block versus he's saving his top block for his special lieutenants, and I'm talking about from a lieutenant standpoint, when you have a battalion commander dictates whether or not you're going to have a good career or that follow-on job assignment. Those evaluation systems were finally found, like everything I said, changed, eventually come. Those evaluation systems were changed because they started showing that there was an unfair bias, where you start finding, and it was along racial lines, where yep, all your white soldiers that were up for promotion were getting promoted, but all your soldiers of color, it wasn't time yet. You got to wait your time, okay? And understand, and me with a college degree, any type of promotion, I would max out the points. Whether it's a PT score, whether it's the only thing that would hurt me if a commander wasn't 100% endorse me. But you would think that if the company commander would endorse their second lieutenants, first lieutenants, then the battalion commander, who don't spend any time with you, only thing he know is what that company commander tells him. It would be based on whether or not you are above the zone or right in the zone for promotion. And that's subjective to really how that rater feels about that particular officer at the time. Black or white, whatever the case may be. But yeah, some folks say the Army is colorblind. Nope, it's not. It's not the Army. The system is supposed to be colorblind, but you have folks that bring their biases along with their evaluations. But enough about the military. To bring us up to speed, some of the changes that are happening right now, we talked about that light fighters mentality. Well, the Army has kind of been living this thing for the last 20 years since we went into Afghanistan and Baghdad. The doing a lot more with less has always been what they think is the right thing to do. Well, the folks that come up with this stuff are the politicians that don't spend any time out in the field. What they need to do, and I would tell any politician that wants my vote and want me to give them any type of credibility, let me know that they spent some time in a uniform, not the Army, but just the military service, whether it's National Guard or reserves or active duty. The last 20 years have shown us that the reserves or National Guard, which is supposed to be the backup to the active Army, to support the active Army, they've been going back and forth to these deployments as much as your active Army has been going.
Hello, everyone. This is Sandra Jones, co-founder of Community Podcasts. I'd like to say thank you to all our listeners and viewers. We're asking for positive vibes only. Thank you and have a great day.